So I first off want to thank you for coming in today. And
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'll be serious. I know this is important. I'll be serious. I'm sorry.
no, that's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
Actually, I think this is fine.
Okay.
I think this is fine to be like this.
Okay.
Obviously, this is a little bit of a awkward video, but thank you for coming in. Thank you for helping me with this interview and this project. And if you could start out by just saying a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I am from Canada. I grew up in Canada. Well, I don't know. My family, I guess I have my parents and I have one sister. We grew up in Calgary. And my parents separated 7 years ago. Anyway, yeah, that happened around like my last couple years of high school. And then I moved out to New York when I was 19. And I've been here pretty much ever since then. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want me to go into depth with certain things?
It's up to you. How do you like New York City?
I like it sometimes. Sometimes I don't. I think that there's a lot of awesome stuff to do, but there can be. Sometimes, I mean, to do a lot of sweet stuff, you have to have money to do it, and it's very expensive to live here. And it can be a very lonely place sometimes, other times not. But it's always sort of amazed me that there's so many people here and you can feel so lonely. There's millions of people in such a small space. But I mean, when I moved here, I definitely kind of had, I don't know if you'd call it culture shock, but I had never lived outside of my house with my family. And then I moved to New York when I was 19, thought like, oh, it's no big deal. It was really hard the first year that I lived here, for sure. Really hard.
That must have been really difficult. Why do you think it's been more lonely for you now than it was when you first got here?
I wouldn't say it's more lonely now than when I first got here. It was most lonely when I first got here, for sure, because I didn't know anyone. I knew one person. And then I started going to school, and I met people that way. But even then, it was kind of hard for me to get close to people. It took me 8 months before I really felt comfortable with the people I was going to school with. And I think having a good community that you're surrounded by, a support system, takes away from that loneliness. But after I graduated from school, a lot of my really good friends left, and it was that support system went away, and I kind of reverted back to feeling very alone here. And I think it's also just, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way when they graduate high school. You're pretty much surrounded by the same people for your entire life. You have the same routine your whole life. You're with your family. You have that structure, and then it's all taken away from you. It's okay, now go figure it out. Figure out how to live now.
Do you think it made it even harder for you that when you graduated high school or right before you graduated high school, your parents separated? So you went through a really major thing in your life, and then you got up and moved to one of the biggest cities in the world by yourself?
Probably. I don't know if those two things coincided, but I'm sure that things that were going on with my family at the time didn't help me deal with a huge change. I mean, I already kind of went through a huge change in my life, and then another one. And it all kind of happened in, at an age where I still was, figuring everything out. If none of those things had happened, if my family was perfect and I hadn't gone away, I probably still would feel totally confused and lost. So 18, 19 years old, you don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
But maybe in a way it helped me too, because you kind of learn how to, if you go through something traumatic, if you go through, something like that, then you kind of feel like, I can do anything now. Like, I survived that. I don't know.
Do you have a good relationship with both of your parents?
No. I have always been very close to my mom. Very close. Like, when I was a kid, she was like my best friend. Like, I had a hard time sleeping over at other people's houses because I didn't want to be away from my mom for like one night. We've always been very, very close, and I've obviously depended on her as my mother, but I have felt too like she depends on me as well. And my dad, I was, I guess, kind of estranged from my dad for a couple of years. When I was entering like my last year of high school, I guess, my mom sat me down, and my sister and I down, and told us that our dad had a pretty bad drug problem, which had been going on for a while, that she had sort of kept from us. We didn't know it had been going on for a couple years. So that's sort of how everything happened. So that whole year, like my last year of high school, was dealing with that issue and having it out in the open and putting my dad into rehab multiple times with him leaving after like a couple of days. And like by the time Christmas rolled around, we changed the locks on our house, like kicked him out of our house, and then that was sort of like back and forth. Like he would come back for a while and things would be okay. But it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So we finally ended up getting a restraining order against him. This was all around like my 18th birthday and like when I was graduating high school and stuff. And that, it was pretty fucked up. But so that restraining order, I think, lasted for 2 years. Obviously, a bunch of stuff happened in that time, but so that was over the time, like the first year, the year that after I graduated high school, I stayed and I worked full time for like a year. Then I moved to New York. So it would have been after my first year, right? It would have been about 2.5 years that I didn't speak to my dad. I didn't see my dad until the Christmas of like the second year that I was living here.
Wow. What made you decide to talk to him again?
So we had a restraining order against him. We didn't talk to him. To be completely honest, in those couple years, I expected a phone call saying he died. I did not think he was going to live the way that he was going. And the fact that, like, if your rock bottom is not the fact that your family has a restraining order against you, you can't go into your own house, you're completely bankrupt, like, you're about to die, like, if that's not your rock bottom, like, what is? I don't know. But through his own journey, whatever he went through. He put himself through rehab eventually. So he completed rehab and I guess, like kind of cleaned himself up and contacted the restraining order expired, so he was able to contact us. So he contacted my mom and our family and wanted to see my sister and I over Christmas that year, and so we had dinner with him, and he talked to us, and he definitely, he wasn't on drugs. Seemed as normal as he could be, I guess. And then since then, we just sort of started redeveloping a relationship with him since that time. But, so in answer to your question, no, I don't have a normal relationship with both of my parents. My relationship with my dad is, different. And I don't know, I still have a weird relationship with him. I don't think that you can have a normal relationship with somebody after you go through something like that with them. And the things that he did to our family they're pretty unforgivable. But, we're still trying to have some sort of a relationship with him, I guess.
Takes a lot of courage.
I guess. I don't know. It's just weird. It's like sometimes I don't understand how I can even talk to him. Like it kind of makes me mad. Like, why do I even have to talk to you? Why do I have to have you in my life at all? I don't owe you anything.
Isn't that your choice?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so weird, like, because sometimes he'll do things or he'll tell us things that make me feel so bad for him. Like, sometimes I have, like, overwhelming compassion for him. And then I'm like, how could I feel that way? How can I, because I don't feel like he feels that way towards us. Like, considering everything that's happened, like, I don't think that he has that kind of compassion for me and my family as I do for him, which is it seems so backwards.
It must be really hard to see your dad as kind of a manipulative phony. The role of a father is supposed to be supportive.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be the man of the house, the guy that takes care of you and your family, your mom, your sister.
Yeah. I like understand that. Like, I understand who he is. And even if all of that hadn't happened, like, he's a unique person. He's a very different person. I don't really ever feel like or have felt like I've met someone like him before. And so that in itself is like, I just don't know how to deal with you. I don't really know who you are in my life. I don't know what role you play in my life. You're just there because you're my father. But I don't know what you bring to my life. Like, And maybe that's why I, try and maintain a relationship with him is because, you are my dad. I should try and have you in my life in some capacity. But, I mean, the majority of the time, I just don't give a shit.
Well, the relationships are supposed to be reciprocated.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be one-sided. So no one can blame you for not giving a shit. You can't choose your parents. You can't choose your family.